Motorsports Coverage presents Speed World. The tower at Bristol International Dragway, a landmark here and the first multi-purpose tower built specifically for the sport of drag racing. We welcome you to Bristol International Dragway in Tennessee for the Terry's Fall Nationals, the 8th and final stop on the IHRA Tour for 1987. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Ted Jones, and this is Thunder Valley, USA, a nickname given to Bristol International Dragway many years ago. Ted, how did that nickname develop?
Actually, Bob, that nickname came from the race fans. They named Thunder Valley, USA, because of the strange reverberation between the mountains when the nitro-burning funny cars and supercharged dragsters do their burnouts. Add to that, Thunder Valley has the longest concrete launching pad on the IHRA circuit. It is at 1,600 feet altitude, which means there's not as much oxygen in the air here at Bristol. And the air density is constantly changing at Thunder Valley, so it's very difficult to dial in your car.
A lot of tradition at this racetrack. The best drivers have won and lost here. There's always a lot of good competition and speed. Brett Kepner is the third member of our broadcast crew today in the pit area.
Each and every year, the Fall Nationals, the final IHRA Championship drag racing event, provides drivers with a very interesting scenario. If indeed they want to make a mark at the very end of each season, they've got to run and run hard here at the Fall Nationals. This year, they definitely ran hard during qualifying. The Pro Nitro Dragster field was the second quickest in history. The Pro Stock field was the quickest in the history of drag racing. It took a 7.48 second run just to qualify here. The Pro Alcohol Funny Car was the quickest in history. And in Pro Funny Car, Doc Holliday led the show with an incredible 5.60 second elapsed time. We're going to see those kinds of runs during eliminations today, and believe me, like I said, the drivers will run hard. Back to you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Brett. And so we are set for eliminator rounds of the Terry's Fall Nationals from Bristol International Dragway, being brought to you by Motorcraft, quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. And Ted Jones back for International Hot Rod Association drag racing from the home of IHRA, Bristol International Dragway. Set to go in the quarterfinals of Pro Nitro Funny Car, and our first round of competition is going to feature Daryl Amberson against Tom McEwen. There's Amberson.
Amberson, qualified number 6 in this event, has got to be considered the underdog here. Tom the Mongoose McEwen in his Coors-sponsored Corvette, qualified number 3.
McEwen from Fountain Valley, California against Osco, Minnesota's Daryl Amberson.
Watch the McEwen crew as they put him exactly back into those hot, sticky tracks of rubber.
And now McEwen finally staged. Green light goes on. McEwen is in the near lane. Has a good oh, he crosses the center line. And that's going to be a disqualification for Tom McEwen, and Daryl Amberson clocks in with a 248.61 of 585.
Taking another look at it now, you see actually Amberson was out first. Now McEwen shifts to high gear. Look at him move over. There he is on the center line, being disqualified, and wisely shut the car off.
Well, he came very close to Amberson, but is disqualified because he crossed the center line. Here's Scott Coletta from Belleville, Michigan, getting set to go against R.C. Sherman.
R.C. Sherman of the old Black Magic Funny Car fame in the Ray Vestas sponsored car against the son of a legend in drag racing, Scott Coletta. Look at Connie. That's Scott's father, Connie, you see there dressed in black. He's talking with Larry Frazier, the crew chief. Apparently they're a little unhappy with something.
And we'll see
Connie looking inside the car now. There's some smoke coming out of the car, which would indicate some sort of a problem. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
We'll see Connie Coletta a little bit later in Pro Dragsters when we get set to go now, as Coletta is finally staged. Green goes on, and a big puff of smoke coming from R.C. Sherman's car, and Scott Coletta has a solo run.
Boy, what a wheel stand Scott Coletta went into, a power wheel stand. He actually had to lift and let the front end of the car fall down. Now there's Connie Coletta discussing with Frazier, the crew chief, the problem that was on Scott's car. He won the race, but they're concerned. Let's have another look at it. Watch now as up in smoke goes R.C. Sherman. He's going to be working his way off the end of that pad. There you see the first wheel stand shifts, and there's the second wheel stand by Scott Coletta. He wisely shuts it down just enough to drop the front end and go to an easy victory.
Obviously a lot of power, though, in that Scott Coletta machine. There's the ET in miles per hour. A 683, 159.01 run for Scott Coletta. Doc Holliday is getting set to go now against Jack Wyatt.
There you see Jack Wyatt, who qualified number 8. He has his hands full. Doc Holliday, the other independent in this race, qualified number 1.
So Jack Wyatt in a Dodge Daytona gets his machine ready, and there is the car of Doc Holliday as it proceeds to the staging line.
Holliday, number 2 in the points, has been giving to Mark Oswald, who now has the World Championship locked up fifth all year.
Both cars staged. Screen goes on. Wyatt in the near lane. That's Holliday on the far lane, and a relatively easy victory, but a puff of smoke right at the line.
That may be very serious, Bob. That smoke looks like serious engine damage for Doc Holliday. We'll find out a little later.
And there are the results in the quarterfinals. It'll be Doc Holliday. Also winning was Paul Smith, who beat Jerry Caminito, Scott Coletta, and Daryl Amberson, the 4 that go to the semifinals in Pro Nitro Funny Cars. It's going to be Bob Newberry, who is the points leader in this division, against Arnie Karp. And Ted, there's some great competition here at season's end for the champion of this particular division.
Well, Newberry, Karp, and Don DeFluter are locked in a war for the championship, and Karp keeps spoiling Newberry's chances. Newberry with the Wheels Discount Auto Store sponsored Oldsmobile, Arnie Karp in the Pepsi sponsored Boston Strangler. Very colorful name.
Karp has another opportunity to spoil Newberry's drive for the championship if he can pull off a win here this afternoon. At top end, oh, a close race, but it's Arnie Karp defeating Bob Newberry, and so the upsets continue. Not necessarily an upset, but at least Arnie Karp's attempt to keep Newberry from the championship, a 634.
Look at the speed on that. That's a new speed record, 224.43. Let's take another look at that record run right now. Actually, Newberry off the line first. Now here comes Boston Strangler Arnie Karp up beside Newberry. Newberry in the fight for his life shifts now into high gear. Both of the cars with the front ends bouncing slightly. Does he have enough? Yes, sir. Nips him by about 10 feet.
In other quarterfinal action, Greg Moss from Fenton, Missouri squared off against Ron Scott from Clifton Park, New Jersey. Moss won with a 213.771, a 642. Scott had a 688, 157.34 miles an hour. Dal Denton and Charlie Byers, a couple of Texans, went at it. Dal Denton won with a 216.86 mile an hour run, a 642, against Byers' 213.2, a 656. Now we're getting set to go with Gene Bull from Baytown, Texas, another Texan, up against Mark Thomas from Louisville, Ohio.
Gene Bull, who defeated Don Gerardo to advance this far in the competition. He's driving for Dean Thompson, whom we haven't seen in drag racing for quite a while.
And there is the fairly generic car of Mark Thomas. Not much painting on that except for plain white.
That's actually a 1987 Corvette that Mark Thomas is driving. There you see the Dean Thompson car being driven by Gene Bull. They're both staged and ready.
Green light flashes on. Bull is in the near lane. Mark Thomas, far lane. Thomas has him. At the top end, Mark Thomas does defeat Gene Bull.
Mark Thomas in a big upset. This will be the first semi-final appearance that Mark Thomas will earn. He wasn't really supposed to win that thing at all, but he came in with a beautiful 6.42.
So there you see the 4 drivers that advanced to the semis. Arnie Karp, Dal Denton, also Greg Moss, and Mark Thomas. Now here's another international hot rod hit from 1987. The question is, what Pro Nitro Dragster driver was not injured in this horrendous crash during the Motorcraft Northern Nationals in Milan, Michigan?
Well, you saw it right here on ESPN. Keep your eyes on the far lane now, as this driver will have a little problem. He gets some liquid on the tires, and there he goes, over sideways, completely over the guardrail.
It's just very hard to believe that the driver came back to the racetrack later this day. Was it John Kerry, Dan Pat, or Hank Indris? Ted will have the answer in a moment.
Nitro Dragster driver was not injured in this horrendous crash during the Motorcraft Northern Nationals in Milan, Michigan. The lucky survivor of this terrifying crash is Hank Indris, who was piloting one of John Kerry's dragsters at the time. Believe it or not, Indris escaped the accident unscathed.
Unbelievable. Now we move to Pro Stock Eliminator, and Billy Ewing is getting set to go against Bob Olson in the quarterfinals.
Bob Olson, one of the match race kings around the United States, defeated Mike Basil, the oil company owner, to move this far in eliminations. Billy Ewing defeated Ed Dixon.
And in that round, Olson ran a 190 and Ewing a 193. The green goes on, and Ewing is going to have an easy victory. Olson shut it off, it looked like.
Billy Ewing turns in a sensational 7.41, 194. Right now, let's go to the Pro Nitro Dragster pits and Brett Kepner.
Here in the Pro Nitro Dragster pit area before the first round of eliminations, a major meeting between Gene Snow and crew members Guy Tipton, Wayne Dupuis, and Mark Williams have found a crankshaft with a hairline crack in it. Snow does not want to take any chances before going into the first round of eliminations. Therefore, the crew has elected before the race to change the crankshaft. The engine is completely out of the car. The streamlined snowman machine sitting in the pits with just a bare chassis. As the crew goes about the task of replacing the crankshaft and, of course, reconnecting all the pistons and connecting rods. It's a massive undertaking, but as we said, Snow doesn't want to take any chances here in the final race of the 1987 season.
Gene Snow scheduled against Michael Brotherton in just a few minutes. Now, more quarterfinal Pro Stock Eliminator. Ricky Smith went up against Tim Neighbors, and Neighbors red-lighted, moving Ricky Smith to the semifinal round. And also in the quarterfinals, it was Carl Kirk in the Pennies machine going up against Jerry Haas. And Haas also red-lighted, moving Carl Kirk to the semifinals against Ricky Smith. Now getting set to go is Dean Goforth from Holdenville, Oklahoma, and his opponent is going to be Kenneth Tripp.
Dean Goforth upset Jimmy Ruth in the world's fastest Pontiac in previous competition, and Kenny Tripp advanced here by beating Gary Duckworth.
Looks like that Goforth is coming on in the late stages. A close race, but Goforth wins it.
That's an incredible race. Dean Goforth, a 7:44. Now look at the ET on Kenny Tripp, 7.45, 192.30 mile per hour. The reaction times were almost identical. As we look at it again, it's probably the closest race you'll see today.
That was unquestionably the best that we've seen so far, and so the Pro Stock matchup now in the semifinal round. It'll be Ewing and Goforth, and it'll be also Carl Kirk against Ricky Smith. Now we move to Pro Nitro Dragsters, and this is Connie Coletta. We have already seen his son, Scott, in competition. Now it's Connie in the Pro Dragsters, and his opponent is going to be Jerry Marconi.
Looking right into the eyes of Jerry Marconi, the Gold Rush driver from Waconda, Illinois. Marconi qualifying number 8. Coletta has to be the man of the hour. At this event, he qualified number 1.
He, of course, owns Coletta Flying Service from Ypsilanti, Michigan. Jerry Marconi hails from Waconda, Illinois. Coletta is on the left and Marconi on the right. The green goes on. Coletta with a hole shot. And it's a close one, an excellent race, but Connie Coletta pulls it out with a 5:38.
What a tremendous time and speed. Let's take a look at it again. Here comes Coletta. Look at that front tire lift off the ground. He has traction coming off that concrete pad. Still trying to get the front end on the ground. Now he's got it, shifts to high gear. Coletta straining and moves first to the finish line.
And he certainly has got to be considered a favorite as we move through the afternoon. Former legendary football player Dan Passerini is in his machine lining up against Jack Ostrander, the third fastest qualifier.
Jack Ostrander, who has one national event title to his credit going into this, owns the 300 bowl bowling lanes. That's why you see that on his car. There's Passerini in the Coors Light Silver Bullet.
Green light. Passerini Miller's car falling behind, and it's an easy win for Jack Ostrander.
And Ostrander wins it with a 5.42 ET. Look at that speed. That is a new track record, 272.72 miles per hour.
And there is Michael Brotherton, the 5th fastest qualifier here at Bristol. His opponent scheduled to be Gene Snow. But remember, we saw in the pits with Brett Kepner just a few minutes ago that Snow was having problems. He has made it to the line. Let's see how things work out for him.
Snow, alive and well, fixed that transmission problem. Snow, the reigning world champion, just crowned this year, qualified number 4. So really, this could be anybody's race.
The small airplane-type tires on the front end of that Gene Snow car. The more conventional dragster of Michael Brotherton.
Snow just a little off the pace in qualifying, qualified with a 5:51. That's a little slow for Gene Snow. Brotherton with a 5:52.
We've got a problem.
Yes,
Definitely have a problem, Ted, as it looks like they've shut off that machine and they're pushing it back.
Well, apparently they did get that problem fixed, or at least only temporarily, enough to do a burnout. So Michael Brotherton will take a single run, rather, into the semifinals.
Well, a tough break for Gene Snow, who was looking so good in the qualifying. Here's Michael Brotherton's single run. It's important. He runs a 255.68 of 5:49.
So Brotherton picks up the pace with a 5:49. He'll be paired up against Connie Coletta when we go into the semifinal action. There's the dejected Gene Snow out of his car after trying so hard to make it in this round.
Richard Holcomb, the 2nd fastest qualifier, now getting set to go, and his opponent here in the quarterfinals is going to be Bill Mullins from Pelham, Alabama.
Mullins qualified number 7 for this event, while Holcomb is the number 2 qualifier. Now remember, you see walking in front of the car right there, Holcomb is being wrenched by the legendary Clayton Harris, a former champion. You see him backing Holcomb into the tracks right now.
This is our final quarterfinal matchup. Richard Holcomb against Bill Mullins.
There you see the crew chief working desperately on Bill Mullins' engine. There could be a problem. It's something we'll want to keep an eye on as they stage, Bob.
And Richard Holcomb moving his car up to the line. Both are staged. Mullins on the left, Holcomb on the right. Here we go. Oh, a big explosion, a blower explosion on the Holcomb machine, and Bill Mullins is going to win.
So we thought Mullins might have the engine problem. It turns out that Holcomb lifts the blower at about the 500-foot mark, giving Mullins the easy victory.
Mullins with a 183, a 589, and there is Richard Holcomb's car as it's come to a rest, but look at this explosion.
Let's watch it one more time. You'll see him as he leaves the concrete pad, and all of a sudden, boom, the blower blows completely off the intake, and Mullins comes sailing by for the easy win.
Well, it's nice to see that Richard Holcomb is climbing out of that car uninjured. It's a tribute to the safety regulations by the IHRA.
There you see the arm restraints. Those keep the driver's hands inside of the cockpit. You don't often get to see that here in our racing coverage. There's one of the PTS crewmen right there, Dwayne Dimmitt, making sure that the fire is out.
And so the matchups now in the semifinals, it'll be Coletta against Brotherton and Mullins against Ostrander. That will be coming up in just a few moments, the semifinal round in Pro Nitro Dragsters. Another brave-teasing IHRA hit for 1987. What two Pro Nitro Funny Car drivers shattered the elusive 270-mile-an-hour barrier during the 87 season? Was it Bernstein Oswald, McEwen McCullough, or Dunn Smith?
From racing to the road, competition cams are the best.
For International Hot Rod Hit 1987, the question, what two Pro Nitro Funny Car drivers shattered the elusive 270 barrier during the 87 season? The answer is C, Dunn and Smith.
Well, actually, the run that Mike Dunn made was 270.27 miles per hour at the Campbell Spring Nationals. Paul Smith, on the other hand, down at Rockingham, ran a sensational 274.39 miles per hour to set a new IHRA speed record. The only two drivers this year to break 270.
And where will it all end? We look for more speed next year. Pro Nitro Funny Car Eliminator now. We're in the semifinal round, and it'll be Scott Coletta who turned in a 1:59.01, a 683 against Daryl Amberson. And there you can see his quarterfinal statistics.
Well, Scott Coletta has the entire pit area humming at this race because he qualified number 2 and then dropped R.C. Sherman in the first round. So everybody's wondering. But remember, Scott had some trouble with that car in the first round. I'm sure Daryl Amberson is counting on that. It could be anyone's race.
Amberson, you'll recall, defeated Tom McEwen in the quarterfinals when McEwen crossed the center line. Both cars staged. Green light, here we go. It's Coletta in the far, oh, and he crosses the center line. Amberson is going to win.
Well, Coletta would be disqualified, and very wisely, he shut the car down. He almost ran into the side of Daryl Amberson, saw that he was on that center line and shut down. There you see Amberson's time of 5.95, slowing down. Look at the reaction time. Coletta had him off the starting line with a 194. Now coming off the pad, one tire slipping. There he is right down the center line. Recorrects, steers away from Amberson, averting a near tragic crash, and Amberson on to the easy victory.
And you can see that Amberson made a slight correction too when Scott began to come over in the lane. Watch closely.
Look at Amberson veer away from Coletta to keep from hitting him.
And let's go to the top end.
Well, Daryl, that was a close one.
Yeah, it was. In fact, Scott came into my lane on that one. I didn't see him until about three-quarter track, and I just saw the side of his car coming in my lane. I swerved a little over to the right and kept my foot in it, and we got there.
An incredible job. Your first ever national event final round, and this is going to make your partner Hugh Monroe awfully happy who couldn't be here this weekend.
Oh, he's not going to believe it. This is great. I can't believe it. We are excited, to say the least.
Amberson in the finals. His opponent is going to be either Paul Smith from Boynton Beach, Florida, who defeated Jerry Caminito in the quarterfinals, or Doc Holliday, who had some engine problems in his win over Jack Wyatt in the quarterfinals.
Looking into the intense eyes of Paul Smith. Remember, he just ran a 574, 257 miles per hour. This man is serious.
That win over Jerry Caminito. His car being started, and Doc Holliday from St. Paul, Minnesota is also set to go. It is going to be interesting, Ted, to see if those problems that reared their head during the quarterfinals are going to plague him here in the semis.
Oh, he's blown an engine. He has blown an engine, and the car is on fire. Holliday pulling it off to the side now. What a cool professional driver he is. Still on fire. There you see the escape hatch opening up. Out comes Doc Holliday. There's the PTS safety crew on the scene just that quickly, and we can hear Paul Smith still burning out in the other lane. Holliday is going to be safe, and now he's moving off behind the guardrail.
Holliday wasted no time in getting out of that Dodge Daytona, but he is safely out as the crew arrives on the scene. No fire evident now, but for a while there was a tremendous amount of fire and smoke coming from underneath that machine.
And look at Doc Holliday shouting instructions to the PTS crew. He wants to make sure that that fire's out. He doesn't want to lose the entire car. He's lost the entire bottom end of the engine now, and he wants to be satisfied that there's no more damage. So Paul Smith will get the single run.
And the green flashes on. Paul Smith, oh, he gets way out of control, almost scrapes against the guardrail there, but turns in a 176 at 620.
Well, he had to shut the car down to keep from wiping the entire side of that car out. A nice driving job by the professional pilot, Paul Smith. Meanwhile, back to Doc Holliday inspecting that car to see just what the damage is.
The future force of Paul Smith now moves into the finals against Daryl Amberson.
Taking another look at the expert driving job by Paul Smith and Chuck Etchell's future force, the car actually beginning to bounce as he gets completely alongside that guardrail. I doubt if you could have slid your hand between the body and the car.
Now here's another replay, Ted, and you'll get an idea of just how far he did cross the line and how close he came to that guardrail.
In case you're wondering, by the way, you cannot be disqualified for crossing one of the yellow boundaries on a single run. On a single, you can do anything you want. Meanwhile, back to Doc Holliday examining the damage on that car from that tremendous engine explosion and a very horrendous fire. Let's take one more look at it.
As you can see, he was doing a burn out, and then the flames appeared from underneath the car.
Well, actually, the bottom end of the motor have blown out, and you've got what is known as an oil fire in drag racing.
So they're getting that car off of Bristol International Dragway so we can continue with the Terry's Fall Nationals. We'll be right.
You are about to see the smartest oil change you can make. Introducing a new Quaker State motor.
Doc, semifinals set to go now. There is Ricky Smith from King, North Carolina, and he's going to be going up against Carl Kirk from Sandbury, Ohio, in the car that Roy Hill used to drive.
Ricky Smith has already locked up the IHRA World Championship. He turned a 7:35 in the quarterfinals. Carl Kirk, a 7:37. What a race this is going to be.
Carl Kirk has won the last 2 IHRA events. If he can knock off Ricky Smith, he may have his 3rd in a row. Here's the green light. Kirk is in the far lane. He's leading Ricky Smith. At the top end, it's Carl Kirk winning again.
Carl Kirk, who has been very quick off the starting line at the last 3 IHRA events, is going to take over the reaction time king of IHRA. There you see it on the screen. Look at Kirk, his reaction time twice as quick as Ricky Smith's, and that tells the entire story. Carl Kirk with the easy victory.
We go down to Fred, who's with Carl Kirk.
I'll tell you, it was a close win, 0.02 of a second. A 7:38 for you, a 7.40 loser for Ricky.
The crew and everybody just works so hard. It's just, you know, I just hope it all pays off and comes together for him here in this last round.
It's a classic Ford versus Chevy final round, and you're up against a guy who's hungry.
I tell you what, he ain't no hungrier than I am. I've been 5 years getting here. I got one 2 weeks ago, and I'm wanting another one.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Carl Kirk will be in the finals of Pro Stock Eliminator, and his opponent is going to be Billy Ewing. Now, Dean Goforth, red-lighted, as you saw, allowing Billy Ewing to go into the final matchup. Goforth had defeated Kenneth Tripp in the quarters, and Billy Ewing had defeated Bob Olson. It's going to be the matchup in Pro Stock Eliminator, Carl Kirk against Billy Ewing.
Let's take a look at the reaction times because they're very significant. Look at that time for Billy Ewing, 0.05 of a second.
And now to the semifinal matchup in Pro Alcohol Funny Cars. This is Dal Denton from Del Valley, Texas, and his opponent is going to be Arnie Karp, who in the quarterfinals ran a 6:34 at 224.43.
Arnie the Strangler Karp running 224 miles per hour to set that new record. Dal Denton with a slow 6:42. So this should be Karp's race all the way with no problem.
And if he should defeat Dal Denton, he will move into the finals against either Greg Moss or Mark Thomas.
There you see them doing what's known as the dry chirp. After they do that wet burnout, they do a chirp to see how well the car is actually going to hook up on that concrete pad.
Karp is in the left lane, Denton in the right lane. It's a red light for Dal Denton, and Arnie Karp is going to go down and win easily. Karp runs a 222, a 6:42 with an 8.
And that's a backup run and makes that 224 mile per hour an official IHRA record. You also saw Dal Denton almost wipe out our ESPN camera. Watch him now. We'll take another look at it. He gets bit completely out of shape, almost into the guardrail, and very nearly takes our camera out, Bob.
So it is Dal Denton and Arnie Karp, and look how close that Denton came to that camera that's located right there at the starting line.
It looks as if Denton slipped into the oil somewhere or another, and that's actually what veered him off.
Arnie, a 6:42 at 222 miles an hour is a great run, but not only does it put you in the final, you're now the new IHRA World Speed record holder. That backs up the earlier 224.
Well, that's great. Well, mile an hour doesn't win races, and we're looking for low ET again. The 42 was a mistake. I saw him red light, and I reacted to it, and I let off and on, and that's where the ET went. But it's running good. It's ran 222. First of all, I want to say hello to my son, Mike. He's in Tulane University. He's my inspiration this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you, you've got plenty of it, because if you were in and out of the throttle, that means this thing's ready for a mid 6.3 second run.
We're ready. We're ready. We're going to be in the winner's circle.
It's not like the first time that you've been there this year. Good luck.
Used to it. It's all had.
So the Peabody, Massachusetts driver moves to the semis. His opponent is going to be either Mark Thomas, who ran a 6:42 in the quarterfinals, defeating Gene Bull, or Greg Moss, who ran a 6:42 in the quarterfinals, defeating Ron Scott. This should be a good matchup.
Both drivers turning a 6.42 in the quarterfinals, so this could be just about anyone's race. Now, Moss has been just a little quicker off the starting line.
Thomas with a 6:42 with a 9. Moss with a 6:42 with a 8. In the quarterfinals, here we go. Thomas in the far lane, lagging behind, and Greg Moss is going to go to the finals.
Greg Moss in the second final in a row right here on ESPN, and look at his crew as they're very elated. There's another 641 for Moss.
And the matchup in the Funny Car Finals, it'll be Arnie Karp against Greg Moss.
Taking a look at the look at the reaction time on Karp, 1/1000th of a second. Moss, you better get quick.
Semifinals now in Pro Dragster Eliminator. Jack Ostrander is getting set to go, and his opponent is going to be Bill Mullins.
Well, Mullins is not supposed to be right here right now because he qualified number 7. Jack Ostrander, on the other hand, has been really hot. Remember, he set that new track speed record at 272 miles per hour.
An idea of the power as we saw the Bill Mullins headers right there. Mullins in the left lane, not yet staged. Now he is. There's the green. Mullins is in the near lane, but Ostrander is going to win at an explosion on the Bill Mullins car right at the line.
I believe that was a blower explosion. You'll be able to see it. Let's take another look at it. Here are the reaction times, nearly identical for Mullins and Ostrander. Now watch, actually Mullins is out in front of Ostrander, and kaboom, there goes the blower, giving Ostrander the win. We'll look at the damage afterwards, and you see the blower move completely off the intake manifold. Those IHRA required SFI blower straps held the blower on there. Looking at it from the reverse angle now, you'll see Mullins as he moves toward the finish line, and there goes the blower.
I'm sure you're aware of Bill Mullins' incredible explosion right next to you.
I heard it. I thought it might have been mine. It's so close.
It's unbelievable, but once again, there's not a thing wrong with this motor, and the crew's doing their job.
I guess they are. They always do.
Another final round for you, and it's going to be a tough one as this machine is going to have to keep up that 5:30 pace.
It sure is. Coletta's going to go run another 5:30. You just know he will.
Well, Jack, he did not. Connie Coletta went up against Michael Brotherton, but Connie Coletta goes up in smoke, and Michael Brotherton will join Jack Ostrander in the finals. There is the matchup. Ostrander on the left against Michael Brotherton on the right, coming up in just a few moments.
Let's take a look at their reaction times from the previous run, and you'll see that Ostrander just a little quicker.
And coming up on our IHRA drag racing from Bristol, the top sportsman. Dragway for IHRA Racing, part of the beautiful Bristol Racing compound. You can see the oval on which the Winston Cup cars compete. A regular feature is our Sportsman of the Week.
Drag racing is well known for having a class for just about everybody, but the International Hobart Association has a very special group of classes you won't see anywhere else. It's called Pure Stock Eliminator, and the machines that are campaigned in that particular division are just as they came from the factory with virtually no alterations. Without a doubt, the king of the Pure Stockers is Raleigh, North Carolina's Johnny Griffin. And Johnny, this Oldsmobile is incredible.
Well, I've had it. This is my 5th year with the car, and the car is a real good power-to-weight class car. It sticks wherever it goes. It'll hook up in my backyard, but I have a real good time with the car. It didn't cost that much to build the car. It's always reliable. It's very, very consistent.
Now, this is what a lot of people would consider a luxury car, a 1979 Oldsmobile Regency 98, a crushed velour interior, and you're not allowed to really modify it at all.
No, they allow you to take the engine and bore it 30 over. Stock replacement pistons. This is an 8.5-to-1 motor. It burns regular gasoline. I don't put any racing gas in the car. You know, I can actually put mufflers on the car and drive it on the street, but I don't. But I could.
It's an amazing piece of equipment, and keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that this bone stock 4,400-pound Oldsmobile runs 0 to 100 miles an hour in 13 seconds on street tires.
Our Sportsman of the Week, Johnny Griffin. Now we move to the finals in Top Sportsman, and the matchup has James Bullock, who had a reaction time of .022, and his opponent is going to be Ed Wilson, who had a reaction time of .026. Bullock in the first round went up against Bill Coolman, who had earlier become the first driver ever to go more than 200 miles an hour in a full-bodied Sportsman car.
Now, when Coolman lost in that first round action, he had a nitrous explosion under the hood, which is very serious. Brett Kepner talked with Bill Coolman about that nitrous explosion.
Well, that's a tough break. I know you were shooting for even faster than the 204. Apparently, the concussion inside the car was pretty bad.
I got a headache right now. It's surprising. I feel like I've been hit by a heavyweight.
Well, it looks like it blew the back window out of the car.
Split the window. The manifold's all split. We had a little fire when we got in. First time I've ever seen a fire in a pro stock car.
It's incredible. We're glad you're okay anyway.
We're fine. We're fine.
You'll be back?
Eventually.
Mr. 200 miles an hour, Bill Coolman. In the finals here of Top Sportsman, it's James Bullock against Ed Wilson.
Now you'll notice the handicap start in the electronic starter. That's because these cars are dialed in and cannot break out.
James Bullock wins with a 170.77, an ET of 785, and a tremendous reaction time.
Look at that, 1,000th of a second for James Bullock. That tells the story. That is a perfect reaction time for James Bullock.
And at the top end, Brett Kepner is with the winner of Top Sportsman, James Bullock.
Stepping out of the car, the Rick Hendrick Performance Chevrolet driver, James Bullock. And James, it's been a long, long time since we've seen this non-nitrous oxide machine in the winner's circle.
Brad, it's been a hard day. I tell you, I got to dedicate this to Rick. He didn't come to see me run, but he told me to do it, so we did it.
I'll tell you, a tremendous job. You want to hear something incredible? Your final round reaction time, Wilson broke out, but your final round reaction time, 0.001.
Oh, good. Way to go.
Leaving the starting line 1,000th of a second after the green light won you this race.
That's the way to go.
The Top Sportsman champion, James Bullock, coming up on our IHRA coverage from Bristol will be the finals in Pro Nitro Funny Car. Finals, Pro Nitro Funny Car Eliminator coming up. The two combatants, Paul Smith driving the Future Force, and his opponent is going to be Darrell Amberson.
Neither one of these guys have been able to win an IHRA national event this year, so we're going to have a first-time winner, and that's for sure.
There's the beautiful Corvette called Ambition that Amberson will be driving against Paul Smith.
Now remember, Paul Smith moved into this final when Doc Holliday had that bad fire.
There's the green light. In the far lane, the winner is Paul Smith with a 252 of 579 ET.
Just take another look at it once again. Look at the reaction times, 265 for Paul Smith. That's going to be very significant when you take a look at the ETs. Smith and Amberson, side by side, Smith pulling out front to take the win. Right now, let's go down to Brett Kepner with Paul Smith.
I'll tell you what, it seems like this happens at least once a year. Paul Smith in the winner's circle.
Yes, sir. One last year, one this year. See, the tire blew out a while ago. There's a liner inside of it. Half track, I couldn't get the car off the wall. I pulled and pulled and pulled, but the liner blew out. We took it back to Goodyear, and they replaced it and fixed it.
This was in the semifinal?
Yeah. Did it run good that time?
Yeah, 574.
Okay, thank you.
A pretty respectable time and speed. Congratulations. Now the Pro Stock Finals. Here is Billy Ewing from Snellville, Georgia, who has defeated Dean Goforth and Bob Olson on his way to the finals. And his opponent is going to be Carl Kirk, the young man who took over the driving chores for Roy Hill earlier in the season and has won 2 straight.
Remember, Carl Kirk has been cutting those quick reaction times.
And he has the whole shot as he beats Billy Ewing and registered his 3rd consecutive IHRA title. Unbelievable.
Another 730, Bob. Carl Kirk, a 734, 192.71 mile per hour. Look at the reaction time. Carl Kirk does it again, a 07. And that's really the entire story. Although Billy Ewing slows to a 745, Carl Kirk first off the line. The car continues to pull, making the gap larger and larger as he wins easily over Billy Ewing.
And what a contestant he is going to be in next year's competition. Now, an ESPN IHRA Quick Fact, brought to you by New Quaker State with QSX, keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.
Despite common misconceptions, there's a lot more to driving a fuel funny car than one would think. As the legendary Tom the Mongoose McEwen tells us, putting the Coors Corvette through a 250-mile-an-hour quarter-mile run is a lot of work.
That's right, Brett. You've got the fuel shut-off over here that turns the engine off. You got the high-low over here that makes it rich and lean depending on the temperature of the engine. You've got the shifter, air shifter on the steering wheel up here. You've got the switch that turns on the backup setup for the lock-up clutch after 2 seconds. You've got the timers on the back that starts the computer for the technical readout. Lots to do in 5 seconds, but these drivers are capable and it works real well.
Although many people might think that a 250-mile-an-hour run is just a leisurely straight-line drive, nothing could be further from the truth.
Get
the biggest stories from the fastest tracks when Bob Jenkins and Larry Newber host ESPN Speed Week. Thursday nights at 7:30 Eastern, only on ESPN.
Back at Bristol International Dragway, and we are ready for the Pro Nitro Dragster Finals. Jack Ostrander, who has defeated Dan Pastorini and Bill Mullins, set to go against Michael Brotherton.
Brotherton this year has had 2 wins and a runner-up in the 3 events he's made it to the finals. Ostrander, this will be his 3rd final round appearance, so both of these cars are favored to win right here in this final.
Well, Brotherton, as you know, had a easy quarter round final as Gene Snow broke at the line, and Connie Coletta suffered a fuel pump problem in the semifinals, so Brotherton perhaps not completely tested yet today. The final test is coming up against Jack Ostrander.
Brotherton, the young rookie for IHRA this year, has been pretty impressive on the circuit.
Green light goes on. Ostrander's in the far lane. Brotherton near lane. Ostrander wins. Jack Ostrander registers a 269-mile-an-hour run, an ET of 5:43.
Taking another look at it, look at the reaction times. Mike Brotherton, very quick off the starting line, actually beat Ostrander there. But ET will tell the story. That's what it's all about in drag racing. Let's go to top end.
Hell of a race.
That was a hell of a race, Jack. Congratulations.
Boy, is there going to be a party at a bowling alley in Michigan tonight.
You bet. Tonight, the whole bunch will be here in a minute. We'll have a good time.
Consistency is beyond the keyword for this team. 543, 269, just like clockwork.
It just keeps on doing it. I don't know what to do, but I just love it.
It's incredible. The 3rd fastest speed in IHRA history today at 272. Your 3rd final round of the year. An amazing job for such a low-budget team.
Well, the guys at the bowling alley really help out, and Jay Christic makes this thing run. These guys are all great. The whole deal is just, it's fun.
And our congratulations to Jack Ostrander, the dragster winner here this afternoon. And a classic matchup, Ted, coming up in the Alcohol Funny Car Finals, Carp against Moss.
Well, Greg Moss finished number 2 in the world last year. He's hot off of a win at Rockingham, North Carolina, but this guy, Arnie the Strangler Carp, has been the man to beat all year in IHRA competition. There you see a close-up of the headers of Greg Moss as both cars are preparing to stage.
Carp defeated Bob Newberry earlier. Greg Moss beat Mark Thomas and Ron Scott. Here's the green. Greg Moss is in the near lane, but Carp wins by about a half a car length. Arnie Carp turns in a 220.58 mile-an-hour run, a 6:34.
Carp knew he was in a race. Let's take another look at it. Look at Moss's reaction time, a 0.7. He actually had Carp off the starting line. He just doesn't have enough horsepower as Carp pulls ahead to win.
Boy, it was a close race, though. We'll be back with another musical tribute and some closing comments right after this.
So the IHRA drag racing season for 1987 is over. And Thunder Valley lived up to its reputation as being one of the fastest on the IHRA series. We had a world's record in Alcohol Funny Cars today, Ted.
That's right. Arnie Carp continued to run, continued to play interference for Don DeFluter. DeFluter trying to take over the points lead for Bob Newberry. Newberry can't seem to lock it up because of Arnie Carp. He just continues to win, Bob.
And great competition in the other pro finals that we saw here this afternoon. Now for his closing comments, let's go to Brett Kepner.
Well, gentlemen, as we pointed out, this event was going to be a hard-fought battle. I think it was probably the most explosive race in the 1987 IHRA Tour. An incredible amount of action, incredibly close races. You couldn't ask for a more intense way to close out the 1987 season. But I'll tell you guys, 1988 is certainly shaping up to be a battle as well. We saw a lot of drivers, including Doug Kirk in Pro Stock, who looks like he's going to be one of the biggest domineering drivers we'll ever see in Pro Stock Eliminator. Likewise for Doc Holliday, who ran some incredible elapsed times, Connie and Scott Kalita, who got their cars finally down the track in record times. Fantastic event. Not much more can be said except what we saw. Back to you, gentlemen.
And so the sun sets on another IHRA drag racing season and on this event here this weekend. The Terry's Fall Nationals have been brought to you by Motorcraft. Quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. They exceed the... We leave you with Jerry Rice and the Phoenix Jet Dragster. For Brett Kepner and Ted Jones, this is Bob Jenkins. So long.